Hey there, and welcome to today's video. For today's video, much like the last community lot that I built, I wanted to get everything that I wanted for this build out of debug and then proceed with the build itself. Now, the reason is the same as always, it just takes forever to go through debug sometimes, but this time around, what I saw was a lighthouse, so I thought, could we somehow make this into a usable lot? Now, I originally wanted to build a house with a lighthouse on top, but that lighthouse is very big, and there's only so much you can scale it down before it starts looking a bit weird. So something else that I found, which you can see me doing here right at the beginning, was a little house that it kind of looked like a bit of a hut, and I thought we could probably build this and make it an actual usable structure. Because the thing is, what you find in debug is what you see. That's all that it is. You can't actually use it on the inside unless you only wanted it for decoration on the outside. But I wanted to make this an actual usable space that we could have something, since at this point I still wasn't sure if I wanted this to be a residential lot or a community lot. So after getting the dimensions and all that, unfortunately there are colors that don't really match. And that's what happens with a lot of these items, that you see them, and you would expect a lot of it to actually be available since all of this is just base game, but at the end of the day, it's not really. So I built that structure first as closely to the model as I could, and after that, I built a little area where I thought maybe the lighthouse is up on some rocks, for example. So I tried my best to make it a bit rocky there, but at the end of the day, some of it works, some of it doesn't, since this is actually on a platform. So the platforms are nice. I've talked about the platform tool before, and I really like that you can get creative with it, but it's also a bit glitchy, and that's my issue with it. So there was only so close I could get to the edge before stuff started bumping up to the top of the platform, or only so close to the edge I could get before it started bumping outside of the platform. So I tried my best to try to get the rocks around there. Obviously, I didn't want to completely just cover it in rocks either, since this was kind of like the Lightkeeper's house and the lighthouse itself. I didn't end up connecting them at the end of the day, and my thought around this was this lot has been abandoned. You'll see how I put sand, and then after that I put some grass, since this was probably a very grassy area and no one has been keeping up with getting the sand cleaned up, which it might sound weird to some people, but this is a thing that does happen. At least in areas that are more of a lake than they are of a beach. So that's kind of what I was thinking that was going on here, that this was probably the entrance of a lake or something like that, and that's why you see some growth and some rocks along with basically everything else. It could also be something like a cape, but again, there was only so much that you can do with base game. So I really wanted to make this an abandoned lot, and I gave it a bit of a backstory as I was building it. So this originally would have been the lighthouse keeper's house and the lighthouse itself. So the lighthouse keeper at some point probably went back and forth, checking on the lighthouse, whatever it is that they do. And at some point, they wanted to make this a bit more of a commercial place and wanted to attract more people here. So they started boat rentals, and then they started at one point seeing a downturn in business again. So they got some areas to help families come along, and they got a little park, they got some barbecues, and at one point, to attract more people beyond what they already attracted, they even built a bit of a snack bar. So they remodeled the whole house itself and got a whole snack bar in there as well. So I found that pretty fun because that gave this lot a community lot, yet a residential lot status. It's not a status that you can actually set. You can either do one or the other. You can't do both unless you do two separate uploads. But I wanted this to be a community lot. I believe I ended up putting it as a regular park. It was originally a provincial park, and I decided to change it to just a regular park since I was going to put a chess table in there. And I like that idea behind it because it is a lot that you could come in and play in and say, hey, this was a lot where we're going to have a sim live. But at the same time, this is also a lot that is, I personally kept it as a park. So you could come in and start remodeling it little by little. If you have some other parks, you could even change the whole structure to be vending stalls and have them work that way. The cool thing about it is that if you have island living and you have Solani, for example, you could get rid of the pond that I used as the beach, I guess you could say in this case, and put that on the water itself. So it would make a lot more sense if you could do something like that, but I was actually quite pleased with how this turned out. I loved how much growth I was able to put around the place since it really gave it that feel of it hasn't been used much, or perhaps it's been completely abandoned, which is more what I was going for. And the more I was building it, the more I was realizing this could be a full-on lot. Now, the interior of the little hut itself was where I was thinking this could still be a very functional house. So what I thought happened here was they completely remodeled their kitchen and they opened it up to the public, and that's where the snack bar comes in. Basically, if you choose to have a sim living here, which everything does function miraculously, the only thing is they don't have a private kitchen. You would have to use the kitchen that is the snack bar, but you could always just have the option to not use the snack bar. If you have dine out, I know it's very glitchy, but it could also work for that. It could also be a little bit of a restaurant that they have by the waterside. Now, as for the interior, I was thinking that maybe this was abandoned many, many years ago, so perhaps back in the 40s it was booming, and sometime around the 60s or 70s was when they started going down and they had to abandon the whole place. Maybe the owner died and no one was there to take over. So I didn't want to do a lot of electronics in here. I did like a radio and that was about it, which I don't know which pack is from, but there was another radio that I would have loved in here. And I didn't put a shower, I believe, mainly because of where the door was. I didn't really want to change where it was, but you could definitely change the bathroom to include a shower if you really wanted to. The main reason why I added a bathroom was it's always just good to have more bathrooms on a community lot. So all in all, I had a lot of fun building this one. It was one of those builds that I went into it with a clear theme of what I wanted to do, what I wanted this to look like, and it ended up looking a lot like what I had in mind. So I, for one, had way too much fun building this one. The lighthouse at the end of the day, maybe it could have been showcased a bit more, I won't deny that, but it's also really awkward how they chose to make a lighthouse as far as the debug items go, and I couldn't really find a way to put it in any other type of build. I could try again if you want to see another type of lighthouse build. But anyways, we are getting close to the end of the video, so let me know what you thought of this one down below. Let me know what you'd like me to try out next, and I hope to see you in the next video. Have a great weekend!